You're at home, not able to taste or smell any of your favorite foods. You feel awful and you don't want to leave your room and risk of getting your family sick and then possibly getting others sick. You're worried that your symptoms may not go away or get even worse. You just hope this passes by so that as soon as it's over, you can get vaccinated. COVID-19 has taken away millions of lives and has taken away people's parents, grandparents, siblings, and significant others. The COVID-19 vaccination can help fight the spread and reception of COVID. Though I've never gotten COVID, I had contact with someone who tested positive. Even though I wasn't with them for long, I didn't want to risk anything. I locked myself in my room for 2 days, and my parents had to deliver food to my door. I even had to disinfect everything I touched when I went to the bathroom. It was awful. I will persuade you on why you should get vaccinated against COVID-19 and why it's not only important for you, but for everyone else. First, I will prove that the vaccination is not bad for you. Second, I will prove that it helps lessen the symptoms of COVID-19. And third, I will prove that it helps reduce the spread of COVID-19. COVID-19 seems to be an epidemic that just won't go away. Starting in 2019, COVID sent everything to a screeching halt, including school. My senior year was taken away, and I remember I was told it would be a 3-week break, and after we'd be back in school. When that break started, I never stepped foot in the school again before the year ended. 9 months later, and vaccines start rolling out to help the fight against COVID. Though it doesn't immunize you, it helps reduce the chances of getting COVID, give you more time to find a permanent solution to this unfortunate problem. There are 4 types of approved vaccines: Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and AstraZeneca. For me personally, I wasn't super big on getting the vaccine, and I was kind of lazy with it. But I knew it was FDA approved, and it not only helped against COVID-19, but it made others feel safe. Though people have become skeptical to this vaccine because of how fast we got it, it ended up being a positive. In an article titled Brief Review of the mRNA Vaccines COVID-19, the author states, the mRNA vaccine development and manufacturing process does not require toxic chemicals or cell culture, and the short production time presents a very low risk of contamination of microorganisms. With short and effective production time, it gives the vaccine a bigger chance at not getting contaminated, thus being harmful for people to take. On top of that, the most reported systemic reactions were fatigue and headaches, which was also reported in patients who took placebo. The more serious systemic effects were reported in less than 2% of vaccine recipients, and fevers were reported after the second dose by 16% of recipients. No deaths were considered by the investigators to be related to the vaccine. COVID-19 has taken away millions of lives, and though for some reason it is still not taken seriously by a scary amount of people. Starting off with the not-so-harmful symptoms of COVID-19, as the CDC states, side effects of COVID-19 can include but are not limited to fever, dry cough, tiredness, aches and pains, sore throat, diarrhea, conjunctivitis, headache, loss of taste of smell, a rash on the skin, or discoloration of fingers or toes. Though a good amount of these doesn't sound too bad, that doesn't mean COVID-19 should be discredited as a common cold or compared to the flu. Next comes the bad symptoms: troubled breathing, persistent pain or pressure in the chest, new confusion, inability to wake up or stay awake, and organ failure. If these symptoms worsen, this could ultimately lead to death. The scariest part of COVID-19 is that it picks and chooses who it wants. Now obviously you're at higher risk if you're asthmatic, obese, elderly, or very young like an infant, yet that doesn't mean you're bound to die if you fall under one of these categories and get COVID-19. There are cases where people who were perfectly healthy have passed due to COVID-19, and people who were the opposite barely got any symptoms and recovered at home. There's just no telling who could be taken away from you by this disease. In an article on ScienceDirect.com, a figure is shown that out of 129,799 people in the UK, 27,006 people died from COVID-19. 14,907 of those people aged 80 or older, 6,765 aged 70 to 79, 3,161 aged 60 to 69, 1,518 aged 50 to 59, 454 aged 40 to 49, 134 aged 30 to 39, and 67 aged 29 or less, which, may I add, is a lot more compared to the state of New York, which is 68% vaccinated, according to usafacts.org, which was updated on November 23rd. Now, 67 deaths compared to 14,000 may seem little, but put 67 people in a room, and it'll show you how big that number really is. With all that, it's crazy to think people will still take a chance of getting COVID-19 instead of getting the vaccine. Now again, this vaccine isn't supposed to make you immune, at least not yet. The point of these vaccines are to help lessen the symptoms and reduce the spread. In an article titled Understanding COVID-19 Vaccine Efficacy, it states, vaccines that reduce disease severity can also reduce infectiousness by reducing viral shedding and/or symptoms that increase viral spread. It's selfish to not get the vaccine, especially if your reasoning is just because you're young. Like that statistic I stated before about the UK, just because you're young doesn't mean you can't get COVID-19 and possibly die from it. If showing that the vaccine isn't bad and that taking the COVID-19 vaccine to lessen the symptoms wasn't enough to persuade you, let's talk about how the vaccine can reduce the spread. On top of being able to lessen your symptoms of COVID, if you ever get it again after being vaccinated, it can also help reduce the spread. In an article titled BNT162B2 and mRNA-1273 COVID-19 Vaccine Effectiveness Against the SARS-CoV-2 Delta Variant in Qatar, which is fancy talk for Pfizer and Moderna vaccine effectiveness against COVID-19, it states, effectiveness against any Delta-induced severe, critical, or fatal COVID-19 disease 14 or more days after the second dose was 93.4% for Pfizer and 96.1% for Moderna, showing that the vaccine is effective against not only COVID-19 itself, but the horrible Delta variant. In another article titled, Can COVID Vaccine Stop Transmissions? Scientists Race to Find Answers, it states, in preliminary work, one team observed a significant drop in viral load in a small number of infected people with SARS-CoV-2 in the 2 to 4 weeks after receiving their first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, compared with those who caught the virus in the first 2 weeks after the injection. The data is certainly intriguing and suggestive that the vaccination may reduce the infectiousness of COVID-19 cases, even if it does not prevent the infection altogether, says Virginia Pitzer, an infectious disease modeler at Yale School of Public Health in New Haven, Connecticut. Again, showing that the vaccine does not prevent the disease altogether, but reduces the spread, which is a start to ending COVID-19. First, I talked about how the COVID-19 vaccine isn't bad for you. Second, I talked about how the vaccine lessens the symptoms of COVID-19. And last, I went over how the vaccine reduces the spread of COVID. COVID-19 is still very present, and the longer it's around, the more lives it will take. We need to do our part and get vaccinated against it, not only for ourselves, but for others, so that we may stop this epidemic and let it be a thing of the past. Thank you.